Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Connie Burton, and I basically want to say that criticism is good if you're not subjective, because from it we learn and we get a chance to improve. When I think about where's black leadership, I take it from a historical perspective that something happened to our leadership. Something happened to our movement. And a lot of times we don't want to connect what really happened to our leadership coming out of the 60s is because we would have to hold somebody accountable. Brother King was murdered publicly, so to frighten off those that would continue to fight for the struggle beyond the civil rights movement, the Voting Rights Act, and the Civil Rights Bill. So King's assassination, the assassination of Malcolm, the assassination of young, powerful young men that was demanding black power. We would have to hold this government accountable, but nobody don't want to do that because there's consequences in doing it. And so what we see happening now is that some folks have traded off and have stepped over and refused to take care of the issues of the masses. And when we all know, while we can, assess blame and say it's the child's fault, where policies are being made every day to trap that child. They just built a $113 million prison down in the Panhandle. They say they can't fill because of they don't have the statistics to put that many people in prison. But Charlie Crist jumps up and say, we got to say jobs, jobs, jobs. Where's the black leadership to challenge Charlie Crist? But we see our children being railroaded in that system every day, and then we say it's the children's fault? No, it is the leadership fault. But the sad problem, the very, very sad problem, is a class line. It's a class line. Because as long as the black middle class has reached its epiphany with seeing Barack Obama at the top of the mountain, damn the rest of us. We're watching our communities being gutted with white developers coming in. We're watching stimulus money coming in. We don't see no jobs. We're seeing all this progress, all the road, little simple things black men can do. But yet we allow them to regurgitate the reason why black men can't have jobs. You got criminal history. Who's the biggest criminals in these white folks in this government? They are. They done crashed this whole economy, and black leadership don't have the guts to stand up and make them be accountable. So when you don't see young people attaching themselves to your leadership style, I think the question has to be, what have you done lately for your people? That's the problem.
Anybody on the panel want to take that question? Go ahead, Ken.
Well, Ms. Burton, I agree with most of what you said, and I can only speak for myself. I do have young people attaching themselves to my leadership style. I had a young man just call me last week, wanted me to mentor him. I'd never met him in my life. I'm his mentor now. We met last week. Tried to be involved, 5,000 role models and other groups talking to our young folks. But here's a couple of things. If you want to affect policy, we've got to have numbers in the legislature, on city council, on county commissions to affect those policies. I've been at the end of a lot of 1 to 7 votes, 1 to 6 votes on the county commission. Last year on the budget. Housing, social services, medical care, hospital support. I thought we ought to raise the millage, have a little bit smaller tax cut, and save those services. I was 1 vote out of 7. So if we don't get together and vote in every election, if we don't make sure that folks get their rights restored so they can vote, then we can talk all day, but you're not going to have the numbers to affect change, whether it's in Congress or here at a local county commission. Number 2, and Life spoke to it, you've got to know who you're electing to office. Mm-hmm. And just because it's a black face doesn't mean they're going to support black issues. And you hit it on the head. You can't separate the classes because I'm middle class, but a lot of my family is not middle class. And so you have to be able to reach back and help everybody in the community. It gets back to electing people who are going to be responsible to the entire community. We've gotten away from that. We go for a flashy campaign message, somebody who can go out to the money folks, and y'all got money folks in Hillsborough, you know who they are, and the money folks in Panelists, and get elected, and then they want to play it safe. And so you got to really look at who we are electing to office. from top to bottom. And I agree with most of what you said.
Well, let me just say this, and I don't need a comment from everybody, but I do know this. At the point and the time we start organizing in our own black interests, we'll see a real transformation. I don't know how those young cats that call themselves the Black Panther Party, I don't know how they did it, but they was willing to help solve the problems of the community. And once you put yourself forward as being willing, even if you can't, I don't care if you can't win every proposal that you legislate, but if the community know that you're fighting in their interests, they're your power. That's your power.
Let me give you another example, because I talked about it earlier. When the budget cuts were coming last year, $70 million cut in Pinellas County that was going to affect children, poor folks, folks that didn't have medical care. I went out to organizations, told them they needed to show up at budget meetings. And as I said, I got one email.
Don't
the
take
morning
it personal.
I'm not taking it personal.
You have to check yourself.
No.
Check yourself.
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Why do I have to check myself?
You have to check yourself because if the people that lost confidence.
No.
That's a lost confidence.
Miss Burton.
I'm not gonna hold you up.
No. I'm not.
If the people rose to the occasion, if the people rose to the occasion, if the people rose to the occasion, had not known what Barack Obama could do, but based on a promise, and the people that saw you for 4 or 5 years in that seat, that says something.
No, it doesn't, ma'am. And I don't know how well you know Pinellas County, but I've been elected 3 times. Okay, and when you tell community organizations there is a problem that's going to affect funding, it's not a sexy issue, but they need to show up because it's going to affect funding for services for our kids, and they don't show up, that's not a reflection on me. That's a reflection on folks not showing up when they need to. And so I'm not going to accept that statement.
I want to break in real quick. I told you guys I'd have to split. Man, this is a wonderful conversation. I wish I could stay. But TBABJ President Camille Spencer's going to take over, and she's going to let you guys finish up with your questions and stuff. Thank you very much. Thanks to the panel. I really appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Eric.
And have a great conversation. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir. You have a question?
Yes, an observation and a question. My name is Ron Watson, and as an artist, I'm predisposed to look at something differently. And the question to me, not so much as where is black leadership, and I think Life and Joe Robinson pointed this out, it's almost somewhat offensive. I think the question probably is where's the effective black leadership, as opposed to black leadership is there. I think this brother here, Darmian, was pointing out about the way we're thinking. Going back into my roots as an artist, it's not so much as thinking outside of the box. It's almost thinking get rid of the box altogether. So there was a thought process with this. Going back to this question here, I read some place where Einstein said the problems that we have created thus far creates problems that we cannot solve at the same level at which we created them. Meaning wherever we are right now, what we need to do to get further along, we have to change our way of thinking. Completely different. The evidence of that is when Barack won the election. He had a whole different paradigm. No one saw him coming. There's a whole different cyberspace out there in terms of what we do. I spent 15 years in corporate America. I know that we break the box. We find different ways to do different things. The other comment, so the question to me really is where is the effective black leadership? And sometimes, maybe I'm optimistic here, sometimes it's right here, we don't know it. I was walking up to this building here, to this school, and I don't think most of us know that this whole Moorish architect that we see here, the roots of it are white folks used to run Europe, Eastern Europe for decades, for centuries. And the mark and the handprint is what we see the architect, and we look around, Moorish architect. The point of it is, with that, is that right now, making up 12% of the population, disproportionately, black folk has influenced American pop culture with the vernacular, with the clothes, the styles, and in time to look at television. So it's going on more of how effective can we, how can we use our leadership more effectively? It's there. Lastly, with this, and this is to Curtis, in my mindset with this, the institutions, watching television, we know now that there's more than 3 or 4 networks now, as opposed to when I was growing up. There's a whole cable network going on. So is it again, a new paradigm is coming up, whether or not you stick with the traditional institutions, or whether or not you look in terms of where we're going on in terms of all the other cable networks that we can do. I looked at the paper not too long ago. We know that the approval rate for Obama is here personally, but in terms of his performance as president, is here. So the dilemma is that people liked him, but his policies in terms of what he's doing, they kind of say, no, that's not cool. So the rhetorical question is it the institution or is it the leadership? So sometimes if we don't go to a particular institution, any institution, do we judge it with the 5 letters, or we judge it in terms of how effective the leadership in or behind that particular institution? My observation is that we probably have to go back to what this brother here is saying. You have to break the paradigm. I don't think there's 3 networks or 4 networks or 5 institutions anymore. I think it's a new shift. I think we have to think differently. Again, the world that we created thus far creates problems that we cannot solve at the same level at which we created them. There's something new that we have to do. As like Joe Robinson said, the leadership is already in place. What do we do with it right now? How effective can we do with it?
Well, Curtis, what do you have to say to sort of respond to that?
Well, I mean, I think the leadership exists, like you said, and I think I heard somebody earlier say that. I think I'm not sure who it was, but I think the leadership exists. But again, you have to ask yourself, what are we doing to help those organizations get better? Are we standing on the outside, throwing rocks at the organization, saying what they're not doing, as opposed to being inside the organization, helping them get better? Because I could beg, if we took a poll in this room, 80% of y'all probably aren't members of the NAACP. But we have a lot of criticism of what you think we ought to be doing inside the organization. I don't think anybody in this room is a member of Joe's committee, Economic Development Committee, where Joe sits down once a month in Hillsborough County Schools and negotiates contracts for African American business owners. Where we sit down with the leadership of Hillsborough County Schools and negotiate school policy. Where we sit down with the City of Tampa, Hillsborough County, and the Tampa General Hospital to negotiate policy as it relates to African American business owners. Where we sit down, leadership of Hillsborough County Sheriff, the police department, to make sure that a lot of the issues that, no disrespect to my man in St. Pete, a lot of issues that happen on the other side of the debate don't happen in Hillsborough County, to make sure that we're top of line or top of face when an issue does occur in Hillsborough County. So leadership, like Ms. Gulley said, is followed. And there's a lot of different types of leadership. A lot of people didn't follow my leadership style because they said I was, quote unquote, too soft to the issues. Or they didn't follow Dr. Horton because they say it was too soft to the issues. But there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. Like Eric said, you get a lot more with honey than you can with hot sauce. But you can't stand on the outside and throw rocks at the organization and not be on the inside trying to make it better. We've been around 101 years. We're going to continue to be there. Whether you agree with the leadership or not, when something happens in your neighborhood, you're not going to call some other group. You're going to call NAACP. I understand. Yes, sir. But you can't throw away 101 years of history. And I have 2 worship masters in my family. I know all about the Masons.
And we want to wrap this up because we got some more people who have questions and want to ask.
I'm sorry, but you can't always sit back and wait for the ship to come out to you. Sometimes you have to swim out to the ship. It's not going to always come knock on your door and say, "Come join me." You got to seek the organization out. That's what I'm saying. Whether you agree with the leadership or not, you have to come join the organization, kick the door in, and say, "We want to change. I don't like what's going on. Let's change it." And that was the open door policy I had. We had a big recruitment that came in, and We were starting to change. I had a lot of energy. But you can't throw away the institutional knowledge that you create after 101 years and start going against the grain of what the organization is about. Because if this young lady didn't show up to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they fired on Thursday, is that racism on Friday?
Good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have some more people who are in line, but if you have something else, you can feel free to line up.